welcome Brian Garbellini here with us this morning. Brian is a director of photography and camera operator for Station 19 and has also had incredible work done with Jungle Book, Alice in Wonderland, American Horror Story, Veronica Mars, just name a few. There's so many of them. You're an expert in your field and with the skills that you have. What else would you like everyone to know about in the fandom? Tell us where you're from.
I am a native of Los Angeles, which is getting to be harder in the film business. A lot of people come to Hollywood to find their dreams, not just in front of the camera, but behind it as well. So we always joke that, when we are on set and we find other people from LA, it's like, oh, wow. So born and raised in Los Angeles, went to college here at Occidental College, Obama's alma mater. Um, let's see, I spent a lot of years doing commercials and music videos. I worked my way up the ranks. So when I started, we were shooting film. So I started as a film loader and then moved up all the positions in the camera department. Um, I actually became a director of photography uh, while doing commercials and music videos. And then at a certain point, I sort of wanted to do something a little more serious and thoughtful. And so I moved over to television. Been doing a lot of stuff with ABC, but all over the place. Like you mentioned, I did some Ryan Murphy stuff with American Horror and a show called Hollywood and a couple days on Ratchet, like several things. So yeah, and then I came on to Station 9. Let's see, I came on to Station 19 on the fourth season as a camera operator that would shoot second units or splinter units like stunts and what have you. And then in the fifth season, they asked me to take over full time. I shared the responsibility with a really great guy named Darren Okada. He's an ASC member. He's been doing it longer than me and was very welcoming and helpful. We discussed a lot. It was almost like a mentorship. He wasn't a lot of times when you have two DPs, they kind of do their own thing and they share information, but it's, you're not necessarily helping each other out per se. But Darren was quite the opposite. Darren was very helpful and was excited to have me move up on the show. He directed an episode and asked in on season 4 and asked me to be the director of photography on it. So that was, an honor. And then since then, he was one of the people that I actually stood behind me when I guess they were deciding what they were going to do for season 5. So yeah, I got the opportunity and I did 5, 6, and 7 as the director of photography.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yes, we love Darren.
We do love Darren.
We got to talk to Darren for a little bit, and yeah, just a cool guy. And I think together you guys probably were quite a dream team over there.
Yeah,
So
he's quietly and understatedly a genius. Like I literally would watch his daily sometimes and I'd be like, how, when, how did he do that? So and he was always good to just explain stuff. He's like, well, just do this. And he's a little bit techie and really kind of into that. I mean, I guess we're all kind of nerdy, but he would really get really excited about little technical stuff and always shared. There was never a moment where he was like, oh, well, you'll learn that on your own, or you just got to practice, or he was always really forthcoming and, really good about that.
that's really cool. Well, we have some I'll have Alex or Susan go next with the questions, but we have some fun questions from your friend David
Mr. Greenspan.
Oh, there we go.
All right.
So I'm sure you guys did you guys interview David or?
Yes, we have.
Yeah,
a couple times.
So the fans know who he is and everything.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Excellent. So what's David got to say?
His first question for you is, who is your favorite director to work with and why is it David Greenspan?
Yeah, exactly. Let's see. I liked Stefania Spampinato. No, just kidding. Well, I did like her very much. But yeah, David was great to work with because I'll tell you the one thing that was really amazing about Station 19 is the film business tends to have a lot of people that are trying to excel in their careers and will often maybe hide their concerns or their inadequacies or their inabilities. David and I hit it off really well because it was kind of like his approach was, look, I've directed a bunch of episodes, but I want your feedback. Like I'm still pretty new at this. And to be honest with you, I was, while I had shot a bunch of music videos and commercials, it's different than to tell a story on television. And so to a certain degree, I was pretty new at it, and we just kind of overcame that. We just kind of tried stuff. And I mean, we would brainstorm every night. We would get together the day before and we would kind of lay out what we had planned for the next day. And invariably, something would always come up and be like, I was thinking about, and then David would be like, that's great, but what if we did this? And we would like stay up, like we would shoot till, 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and I didn't get home till like midnight because we were in his office kind of brainstorming. So, yes, I won't use the word favorite because I was lucky enough to have a lot of really great directors. But to this day, we've become friends, and it's also because he's just really passionate about what he does. And I think hopefully I bring out good qualities in him, but he brings out a lot of good qualities in me.
Yeah.
But don't tell him I said favorite.
It's like picking your favorite child. You can't.
Yeah, we got to keep him in check. He might get big-headed.
He does. Which director did you learn the most from? Peter or Paris?
That's really tough.
Yeah.
That's really, really tough. I'm kind of a list guy, pros and cons. Since I don't have the time to make a list, I'm gonna have to say Peter Page. I spent more time with Peter. I've done more episodes with Peter, and he's just really smart. And he's a filmmaker. He's not just a director, so he understands what my needs are as a DP or what my limitations might be. And so we had a very frank and great relationship to where I would just straight out tell him, like, I can do what you need, but it's going to cost you X amount of time, or and I would give him the decision. And invariably, he knew like, a lot of times I'll talk to directors and they're not super technical. So I have to sort of explain things in a simpler way. With Peter, I never did. He just got it immediately. He'd be like, yeah, good point. Okay, let's compromise here and then let's do that. And so, he was good that way. He also was great in just listening to him, because I sat in a lot of the meetings with the directors and such, and just how he crafts a story and how he waits sort of for the punchline of things. He's very patient, and he'll let things develop. Um, and I came from a 30-second world, commercials. And so you have to get all the cool stuff out first and you're done.
Yep.
Peter taught me a lot about how to drop little sort of nuggets along the way and wait for the big payoff. So yeah, I would say him. I mean, but Paris is great on a lot of stuff in terms of storytelling. You know what Paris was really amazing at is people. Paris knows how to and helped me get the best out of people. It's kind of like being a little bit of in my position, it's not just the technical side, but I also have to kind of run the crew. And it's kind of like being a coach. You need to uplift your team and make them rise to the occasion when we're working long hours, and hopefully lead through example. I never asked my crew to do stuff that I wasn't able to do or willing to do. But Paris is really good about that. Like it was kind of neat to just watch sometimes how I want to say the word orchestrated, but that sounds kind of like weird, but how he kind of orchestrated the set and how everybody managed to do maybe a little bit better work than they normally would.
Yeah.
Who was your favorite actor to work with as an actor and as a director?
Well, those were few, right? Because I only got to work with Jason, George, and Stefania. as actors. Danielle did one, but Darren shot her episode. Um, and so, God, the word favorite really sucks because they brought a lot to the table in different ways, and I actually believe that it helped me get better at what I do. Um, Jason was very methodical and thoughtful of everything. Like he's very detail oriented, and he's just super cool to hang out with. And like I could literally just be at a barbecue with Jason all day long and just hang out and talk about anything. Um, but super, super like really tiny little details that on our time schedule, I'll be honest with you, sometimes I would sort of not think about or belittle, like, oh, yeah, yeah, we'll get to that. And then when I had time to absorb it, I was like, oh, damn, that is so awesome that we need to focus more on that so that, these things develop along the way. So I really enjoyed Jason. I did 2 episodes with Jason. See, also unfair because I got to work with him first off, which he blew me away the first time. I was just like, wow. When I got a lot of the younger new directors, and part of my job is to encourage them and help them tell their story and not like say, you can't do this, or, I pride myself in trying to figure out a way to give them all the information and let them decide what is best for them because it's their story. Um, and Jason and I just hit it off really well. I was very prepared. He had answers for everything. A lot of times, new directors, you'll ask something and they'll be like, I got to think about that. Jason it seemed like he had everything laid out. Um, the reason I enjoyed Stefania was because we joke, but she said it's like we were in a marriage. Like we argued, we bickered, but we didn't bicker like in a negative way. It was like we we each had our point to say and get done, and then finally when we would listen to each other it was like, oh, exactly. So we were like speaking the same language, but we weren't we weren't patient enough to listen. um but I'd say after
Say
about the
after about the
3rd day maybe of prep, right? So we would prep the episodes for about 8 days and then shoot for 9. And about the 3rd day, it's like we hit our stride and we really, and she was really, the one thing I really liked about Stefania is that Stefania was a little bit later in the last season. And so she was much more willing. There's a certain amount of continuity that I have to maintain with the show. And while I don't like to use the words, you can't do that, I'll say stuff like, we don't really do that here on Station 19. Because you got to kind of you can't go totally off the deep end and do something different. Stefania, I'm gonna say hands down, I think her episode is my favorite episode of season 7 because we did really cool stuff. We challenged each other. We took things a little bit to the edge of like not being exactly Station 19, but I think that it made for an amazing episode. Like I'm really proud of that episode. I hope she is because certainly for a first time episode, she like blew everybody away. Blew everybody away. I mean, I've worked with directors that have done like, David, 4, 5, 6 episodes, whatever. And they're great and they're thoughtful, but I was just like really impressed by her boldness, I guess we'll call it. I mean, but see, it's not fair. The word favorite's not fair because like Tessa Blake, who was our director, executive producer, she should have been included in the Paris Peter Page question because I've worked with Tessa on other shows before and I love Tessa to death because she is so smart. Like she's really great about, once again, a little bit like Stefania. I think Stefania um, will someday be as great as Tessa, but Tessa's been pushing the envelope for so many years that she knows exactly when and where to do stuff. And she gave me a lot of leeway in terms of photography and doing things differently from our show. That it was fun. It was like, we never get to do this kind of stuff. And so like, I learned a lot of stuff from her as well. you know. I mean, all of our that's really the bummer about our show being over, is that I thought that the last season, granted, the seasons have all been good, but I thought the last season had a lot of differences, and like people were really passionate about it. And it sucks because I can't imagine what season 8, 9, and 10 would have been like, because we had gotten so cohesive and so, like, even just a regular crew, like my operators, the gaffer, everybody, we just kind of knew stuff about each other and our preferences and what was when to push. You know, my gaffer would joke with me. He's Roger Sasson. He's been around forever. He's in his well, I won't say how old he is, but he's older than me, and he's been doing it for a long time. A lot of big movies and stuff, and he's kind of a funny character. And so he would tease me a lot, and I'd say, "Well, I'm thinking we should do this and this." And he'd be like, "Well, I mean, you're the boss. If you really want to do that," and he'd make me all paranoid. "Well, what do you want to do?" And he's like, "What if we did this?" And it was always not in a negative way. It was always like he pushed me to do something. I'm like, "I don't know, Roger. That's kind of," he's like, "Come on, be bold, you know, just do it." And then we would do stuff, and it was like, and then Peter or somebody would come up and be like, "Hey," or Darren. There were a couple times Darren was like, "Hey, that scene in the coffee shop, like that was really well done. The coverage was great. The lighting looked amazing." When Darren Okada says, "What did you guys do with the blah blah blah?" and I'm sitting there explaining to him like what I did, it's a very proud moment, you know.
Yeah.
And I think it all came because because I came from the crew for a lot of years, I'm a believer that I'm lucky in my position, in that people always say to you, "You did a great job." What they don't understand is I didn't do a great job. I happen to I make choices and decisions, but I have a whole pyramid of people beneath me that are giving me great opportunities to make the right decisions. And so I think we all just kind of came together. And that was the only bummer about, you know, about the fact that they didn't want to continue. So
Yeah, understandable. And it shows. I mean, I think I speak for all the fans of the show when I say it just was progressively getting, it was already a fantastic show. And then season 7 just killed it. Just amazing. So it's unfortunate that we didn't get to continue on that momentum to build on that, because
and you know, I want to mention some other things in that, like we're talking about the people that directed and such, but like just the day-to-day thing. So I was a little nervous when I took over in the 5th season, because it's hard when you move up from a position. A lot of times people might consider you a certain thing. They know you as, "Oh, he's Brian, the camera operator." And so in my mind, maybe it's a wrong belief, but in my mind, I was worried that, are they going to take me serious? Are they going to really respond to what I have to say as a director of photography? The entire cast was like behind me from the get-go. It blew me away. Like all the ladies, the guys, you know, Jay, everybody, they were all like, "We're so glad you're doing this. You know, we see what you were doing behind the camera, and we know the passion you have." And I had this relationship to where I could say, like, you know, obviously the directors would direct their behavior and stuff, but I could always ask for something, you know, if I was in trouble, like, "Could we avoid maybe going by that window because I can't control the brightness of it," or whatever. And a lot of times you're on other shows where actors are like, "I don't know, I have to go by the window. That's how I feel the character should be." Everybody on our show was like, "Yeah, whatever you need, Brian. Yeah, well, I could just do that same line, but over by the dresser instead of, is that going to work?" And I'd be like, "Oh my God, that's so much better. Thank you."
Mhm.
They were always very helpful. And that's the other thing, is we all kind of, to, you know, I mean, we're not like buddies where we hang out every day, but I feel like we became friends. And that's the other bummer, is that um, a lot of people say, "I have to go to work." I used to say, "I get to go to work."
Yeah.
You know, I get to see my friends. I get to be challenged. I get to see how they react to their challenges, how they, you know, because everybody has your good days, your bad days. Everybody has days where you don't maybe agree with things. And like, you know, I don't know if I would do that. And then they do it, and it's so natural, and you're like, "Well, I don't understand why you were upset about it. It came out so great," you know.
Yeah.
So that stuff is kind of something that I miss.
I'm sure. And it sounds like everybody just had so much love and admiration for each other, with the cast and the crew, and that everybody that we've been able to interview has confirmed that too. Just that it was just such a wonderful working family, and that everyone was excited to go to work, which you don't
Yeah, I
find
just have
much around
one
here.
other thing. Remind me to say something. I have one last statement to say when we're getting ready to wrap up. But it's not funny. It's funny. It's partially true though. But let's continue.
Let's see. This is another David question. What's your favorite food truck that comes to set?
Food truck. Oh my
These are
God.
the
If you guys-
hard-hitting, serious questions.
Yeah, so if you guys knew me on the set, I'm a little bit of a Tasmanian devil. I'm all over and everywhere. And so I never really had a lot of time to like go to the food trucks. My crew would bring me food. Um, I'm kind of partial to the taco guys. They would bring Taco Man. I kind of like the taco. They're just easy. They're easy to grab and hold. They're delicious. And you can't go wrong with the taco guy.
Oh
You
yeah,
can never go wrong ever with tacos.
it's great.
And the last David question is, he wants to know when you're going out for Taco Tuesday.
Oh, see? There
Perfect
you go.
lead-in.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a place in Burbank by his house that I sort of discovered. It's kind of by the studio, and I was driving down the road. I'm like, we should try. I went with my wife. We should try that place. And we went by accident on a Tuesday, and it was just packed. It was like we couldn't get parking. I'm like, we ended up sitting in the bar because there were no tables, and it was like, what is going on? And the guy says, are you here for Taco Tuesday? And we're like, oh, Taco Tuesday. So I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll have the tacos. They were delicious. So I took David, and he was like, I don't think I took him for Taco Tuesday though. I think we just went sort of on a double date with our wives, and it was fun. So he says from the we try. I won't say we try, but we often give each other little thank you gifts or whatever. And so he says, well, as a thank you gift for my last episode, I owe you Taco Tuesday, and we just haven't gotten around to it.
No, that's
Yeah. That's cute.
It's cool.
One day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one Tuesday, maybe
One
this,
Tuesday.
maybe
that's
this.
gotta be a Tuesday. I don't know. I feel like Taco Tuesday can apply to any day, even if it's not a Tuesday. But yeah,
Well, the reason that's great is because they make them like $1.25 or something.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
like you could have
Yeah.
cocktails, you could have tacos, and then you get the bill, and it's like, oh, $32. Cool.
yes,
Yeah.
an absurd amount of tacos were had, and it's only $30. It's
Yeah,
great.
exactly.
Oh, I
Well,
love
that's
it.
a victory in LA. So for those of you guys that are not in LA, it's gotten really pricey here.
Ah, that's so crazy. Well, thank you for answering those questions from David. I'm sure he'll be so thrilled. We'll kind of lead into some more fan questions. A lot of these came from beautiful Lori, who submits the most wonderful, like, well thought out questions. A lot of our followers and a lot of the fans of the show, as you know, are huge fans of Maya and Karina and their
All right.
relationship, the Marina ship. She had acknowledged, and as we all know, you were the camera operator for the Comfortably Numb episode, which was in season 4. And so
Also
some of these
known as the engagement
the
episode.
engagement episode, yes, one that everybody loved. It was 4/14, and so some of these questions she had about like that episode specifically. We'll kind of just touch around a few of these.
I actually, that was one of the episodes that I DP'd, the very first ones, because I had done Darren's, which was 4/13, and Darren had a very I don't know if you remember. 4/13 was that was the fight between the police and the firefighters. And we had like a lot of post and visual effects and a lot of stuff. So Darren ended up taking a little extra time to do the director's cut. And typically he does the next episode. And so he came to me and he says, I think I might sit this one out. Do you want to just continue? And of course I'm like, yes, sir, So yeah, I did that 14, yeah. Anyway, so what was the question? Sorry.
Very cool. Yeah, it's one of the favorite episodes for sure. The scenes between Maya and Karina in this episode are some of the most emotionally charged moments. How did you approach framing their interactions to reflect the vulnerability and tension in their relationship?
I think a lot of my job is, this might not be the right word, but I'll say reactive. So you walk into, you do prep with your director and you kind of visualize and you ballpark or plan an idea of where the scene's going to happen and how it's going to turn and the important points of like what's the tone that this needs to be in? Is it, a suspenseful kind of thing? Is it happy? Is it whatever? And you have these plans, but what ends up happening invariably every single time is you watch the rehearsal and the plans don't 100% fall apart, but a large portion of them go like, yeah, that's not going to work. And I want to say I'm reactive in that I think uh, I've been successful in be able to say to the directors, like, did you see when they did XYZ? Like, that's super cool. Maybe instead of the idea of having a crane overhead, it should be more intimate right here in this corner, blah. And, the one thing that's nice about television is that it's nice and it's not nice is that you have very little time. So sometimes your gut instinct, you just kind of got to go with it because you have to get the scene done. And a lot of times there's like magic in the mistakes that happen. And also you learn stuff along the way. And like I learned stuff like from scene one and I'm filming scene five. And because I did certain things in scene one, I want to continue them through, as sort of an arc. So those things, I can't say that I planned for a lot of stuff. The other thing too is that those two ladies are just amazing to watch. Like you literally, sometimes I would be sitting down watching the monitors and I'm constantly watching for technical things and problems and issues to change and fix and what have you. And there were a lot of times where I would just be caught up in the story and I would catch myself thinking, oh, I forgot to look for all those technical things because they were so, and you just get locked into what they're doing. So a lot of it really, believe it or not, it might sound like a cop out, but it's driven by the performance. And the performance, like it almost lays it out to me. I mean, there's certain things that I know, like, I like to light Stefania a certain way, and I want to make sure that, she has XYZ when she stands in certain positions. I'll look at all the technical stuff, but a lot of times, we just sort of evolve as the takes go. You see you watch the rehearsal. I'd like to have my operators watch the rehearsal because they are also contributing members of the team. They also often come to me and say, "Hey, I know you told me to, start on the doorway and Stefania walks in, but uh, Danielle's doing this thing where she seems kind of nervously fidgeting. So I'm going to start there and then go up to, yeah, sounds great. Stuff that maybe I wasn't focused on, didn't catch or whatever, but they're contributing to the story as well. So I can pretend like I planned everything, but I'm not going to. I'm going to say that, like I mentioned before, a lot of it comes from reacting to the situation and then letting the technicians slash artists bring stuff to me that I can decide on.
Makes
Yeah.
sense.
Wonderful.
So along those lines, in that episode, the big argument scene in the apartment, and we've kind of heard like it's really cool how it was shot, like the following around. From the camera operator side, we know that cameras were placed throughout the apartment to catch them as they kept moving. So how would you go about that to like where do we figure out? I'm guessing with a rehearsal, but like how do we catch those angles to like it literally feels like you're just following them as they're going through this argument throughout the place.
Well, here's the thing where I guess it becomes very personal is, I'm a fan too. I'm a fan of movies and television and I watch all kinds of things and there are things that I think are amazing, things that I don't like. I would say that I've spent my career hopefully hoarding all the little good tips in my bag of tricks and making sure I don't do the bad stuff that I don't like. And that's a bad term. I shouldn't say good and bad. It's just what your preferences are. And so I watch the rehearsals like an audience member. And so there are points where I'm walking around as they're rehearsing. I'm like, oh, I want to see that part. I can't because they're walking past the wall. Well, where am I going to catch that from? The other thing too is that the technical side of me, I really enjoy I call it's like a pool game. It's like placing all the cameras to where they almost see each other, but they don't. Like that's fun for me. You know, I'm like, I know we can get a camera right there. And when he pans over, you're going to be panned this way, so you'll never see him. And, you know, that stuff is fun for me. So it also has its challenges in that, you know, I have to consider and accommodate like, ooh, I can't put that camera there because it's going to make a weird shadow because the main light that I'm using is coming through there. Okay, how do I fix that? How do I change that? How do I get that piece coming down the hallway that's behind a bunch of walls that I can't do? And then I'll be honest with you, sometimes we just do special pieces. Sometimes when I simply cannot get it all, I like to try to get it all with 3 cameras at once because once you've had a performance, as amazing as the actors are, it's I won't say it's bad, but it's not fair to ask them to recreate that emotional performance again and again and again. You know what I mean? I try to do things in the minimal amount of takes, as long as the director's happy with it, so that they stay in that moment and they don't have to like, you know, because it's a big thing when, okay, cut, and then, you know, makeup comes in 5 minutes before they have to kind of get back in that headspace. So, and that's a Darren Okada thing, by the way. Darren was on me all the time about that when I first shot his episode. And he would say, you have to consider that the actors are putting themselves out there emotionally, and you can't, like, you have to make your decisions. You can't keep changing stuff because you don't like the lighting, you don't like this. Like, there's a certain point where you got to leave it alone because you got to give them their time and their space to do their thing, you know? So, yeah, that's kind of the fun part of my job is trying to get that all in, you know. And there's plenty of times where I'm like, ah, I wish I would have done this. Luckily, you guys never see that because in the edit, you'll never miss it. But there's times where I'm just like, they should have used that shot, you know, and they did. And
Yeah.
by the way, that's because David Greenspan's the editor, and so he would always get rid of the shots I like. No, I'm just kidding.
Um,
He
He's
had
like, oh,
almost
wait,
final
this one
say.
is gone.
I love this because as a nerd, I do, especially with this scene, I love being like, where would the camera be in this apartment? Like, okay, so we're from this angle and this angle. So I know, like, I like to try and map out, like, so you could have, like, there's almost overlap, but I'm like, so I love hearing about the technical side of it because I like to nerd out.
And remember also that there's also sort of cinematic rules that I have to follow, like crossing the line. If your fans know what the 180-degree rule is, you can't, you know, have an actor facing in 2 cameras, they can't be facing right, and then in the third camera they're facing left. It just jars people. So there's all these technical rules that I have to also like, I really need a camera there, but there's a wall there. You know. So
That dang wall.
It's
yeah,
always the wall.
It's always the wall.
that was a ball. And they're tall.
Speaking about the actors, did Danielle and Stefania ever provide any input on how they wanted certain moments to be captured, especially in the scenes where their characters' emotions were at the forefront?
Uh, I never got a directive from them. I think that I got a lot of afterthoughts, like, and positive, like, oh my God, thanks so much, blah blah blah. You know, I think that I'm very picky about certain things, and the biggest thing that I'm picky about is having moved up along the way. I worked with a lot of directors of photography that said, you know, you it doesn't matter about the rules of nature and how light works or anything. You have to make your actresses look good. You can break the rules to make your actresses look good. So when I would come to them about where they would be in positioning, it wasn't like you have to be here. It was like, I'd like to know where you think you're really going to be because I got to make sure that you look good. I don't want you to go into a position that's not lit perfectly for you. I think once they saw that in me, they just trusted me. they never really said too much. I mean, even, you know, we had advisors and stuff when they would do intimacy coordinators, when they would have intimate scenes and stuff, but they never ever said like, oh, don't do this, don't do that. It was always kind of, they would ask like, where do you think you're going to do when we're doing this? Oh, don't worry about it. I'm going to be having the camera tilting up and finding the nape of your neck and going to your face or whatever. Okay, okay. So I try to give them the confidence that I wasn't going to shoot anything that they were uncomfortable with.
Mhm.
And, you know, they were always welcome to see the dailies and stuff. And they never, like, I did one or two of them. And then after that, they were just like, so what are we doing? It wasn't, you know, ever like that. You know, a lot of times the directors have that, how they tell that story is up to them about, you know, what they want to see. And, you know, also you have to understand we shoot, gosh, I guess we would probably, if I had to put a time on it, we probably shot 60 minutes or so worth of footage for a 42-minute show.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's a lot of stuff that ends up, if it was questionable or like, I don't know, it would get edited out.
Makes sense. This next one just asks, what is the most rewarding or surprising moment for you while you filmed these scenes? Did you expect, did anything unexpected happen to elevate the results? So I guess in a nutshell, like you said, you were kind of captivated and you were just sitting there watching sometimes and just like letting it come in. Was there anything that happened, that you elevated kind of the final results that you were like, this is really awesome. This is better than I expected?
Well, here's the thing. So my crew can attest to this. More importantly, my own kids make fun of me because like I cried at Lilo and Stitch. I get
Oh.
sucked into the movie and it doesn't matter what it is. So there were a lot of times where I was like, oh, gulp, you know, because there was some really pretty amazing moments, you know, and um I guess the strength that I found that I had was learning how to put my cameras in the position to capture those or to be ready for something that might happen, like guessing where it would lead to, and then things would happen. But really that comes from the consistency of their performances. Like I just knew, I could just tell from the rehearsal, like, ooh, this is going to be juicy. I got to make sure to get that. And then invariably, the actors would elevate that moment. Like I knew something good was going to happen, but I didn't know it was that good until it happened. And then the director was like, please tell me we got that. And I'm like, yeah, we got it. Don't worry about it. So, yeah, it would just be, I guess you just have to be a an audience member. And, you know, I think everybody in the world, everybody that watches movies or TV, they put a little bit of themselves into watching. They they like certain characters because they feel like they're like that character or they would like to be like that character or you know you put your own emotional stake into films and television and I think that you I would just watch the stuff and kind of feel like what I thought I would like to see or what I thought felt great, you know. And there was a lot of times where there were things I didn't agree with, and the directors would say, "No, dude, this is really important." I'm like, "Okay." And in my mind I would think, "Is it really that important?" And then I would see it and I was like, "Whoa. I totally missed the boat on that." So, that was what was cool about my job too, is that, you know, there was a lot of learning moments. And to this day, I'll say, I don't know all this stuff. I'm happy to keep learning, you know, and and hopefully interject little things that I've learned from the past or whatever to maybe make those ideas better.
What has been one of your favorite scenes to shoot with the cast, either for the technical challenge or the emotional payoff?
So the last episode was very challenging. It was Peter Page, and it was sort of a send off. You know, this was our last chance to tell a Station 19 story. And there was a lot of technical challenges, some that never really quite made it to the screen. But I scoured footage of traditional Seattle sites, like the Space Needle, all the things that you would come to understand about Seattle if you were a tourist. And we had the trucks come back from a big event, and they were exhausted, and they were driving through the city, and they were seeing in the trucks the reflections of these places. And I don't know why I got a message, sorry. Okay. And unfortunately, the angles that we wanted to see them in reflections didn't exist in the real world. Like literally the truck would be driving in the middle of the ocean in order to get that reflection on that passenger door or whatever. So that was very challenging, is trying to make a cohesive and believable trip that they're driving through the city in places that they would not happen. That was just one. Then we had a museum piece that we did where the photos were still photos that then became alive, that then had motion into them. And that was not green screen. It was like a variety of LED and other technical kind of things to make that work. I mean, that whole episode was like, there were little pockets of really specific things, and all of them were driven for the emotion of it, right? They were all like, Vic was saying goodbye in the airport, and Jay comes up as a surprise, like how to shoot around them so that we don't see them until the payoff happens. That was the whole Peter payoff. Those things were all, there was a bunch of them. It was the last episode, I would say, was the most challenging in Peter fashion. I mean, he always does that. He raises the bar. Every episode I've done with him, I'm like, okay, I joke with him. He says stuff like, okay, there's gonna be a ride. I'm like, Peter, I think I've always kept up with you, but damn.
It was a ride.
Full gas all the time.
It still gets me every time is the final scene of the 19 on the floor before they come out. I'm just like, it gets me every time. I'm like, it's
the very last scene with Jaina, where she walks through and sort of exits the building. Yeah, that crane shot was super difficult. Harry Garvin, the camera operator, I couldn't have done it without him, and Eric Zucker, we call him Easy. He's the dolly grip and crane operator. And believe it or not, when she comes into the room, we do this crazy handoff that required, we go to her, and when she looks at her dad's picture in the cabinet and stuff, and then we flip around and do like a 360 move and drop down as she exits the door. It was pretty complicated, and it was we call them oners, right? There was no cut. Well, there was one cut in between, but it was designed as a one take. And so you get everything perfect, and then that last thing messes up, and you're, I got to do it again, and so, and then it was an emotional scene, so I didn't want to ask Jana to keep doing it. So everybody was on point, and I think we did it in 3 takes, to be honest with you. But yeah, every step of the way, that episode, they might seem simple. Some of the things might seem like, oh, there's just a generic sort of shot, but a lot of them were very calculated and not super easy. And I was lucky that I had the crew to pull it off.
Yeah.
that whole the whole last 2 episodes were just
Masterpieces.
yes,
Oh my God.
absolutely.
All the fire and all that stuff, like that was ridiculous. The smoke, it was like brutal. It was really tough days.
Yes.
Really, really tough days. Like it's crazy. I mean, I don't know when this all airs or whatever, but we've had these terrible fires in California, and it really sort of puts things into perspective, because granted, they're not running around with cameras and equipment, but it was difficult doing it in make-believe. I can't imagine what those guys are going through right now. And
Mm.
just the
100.
heat alone, you know, and all that. So it was pretty cool to be able to, I guess, represent that group. I hope we you know, did it with respect, and I hope we paid justice to what they do, because it's wild.
Yeah, it's like just so beautifully done, and yeah, our hearts go out to everyone in LA right now and everyone that's affected by it. It seems like everybody's in LA that is affected by it.
It's crazy. Like me personally, we were not, we were within about maybe 4 or 5 miles of the fire in Altadena, and there were moments where they suggested we had a evacuation warning, whatever, but it never got serious enough. The winds changed and moved away from us. But then just driving through the area afterwards, it looks like they dropped a nuclear bomb. Like, it's places, and I grew up here, so places that I've known for years and years and years, they are just wiped out, like gone. It's wild.
Yeah, it's absolutely tragic, just insane. Oh, we're glad you guys are safe though, and thank you for still
Yes.
coming on. And I think it's
Yeah, no,
wow.
absolutely. And you know, like, I'll be honest with you, I see the fire trucks go by and I'm like,
Yeah. Heidi, one of the writers, this last season, as you know, she was mentioning it's strange how it's mimicking art. Like a lot of what
oh
happened
yeah,
in 10 were are now actually happening. And even people coming in and you have the Tuliep tribe come in and assist 19 with the wildfires, and just even that, looking for the helpers is what Mr. Rogers used to say, like, look for the helpers. They're the ones that you'll want to shine the light on and things like that. So it's really nice how we've been able to see everyone come together, I think, from a
yeah,
distance too.
there's too many to shine the light on. There's so many people that come together. You know,
Mhm.
actually, I just thought of something. Sorry, but I know this sounds really silly, but shooting them inside those little tent bags, that was actually very difficult, believe it or not, because it's like, how do I get light on their faces inside of a thing? And you know, so it's just funny how things, I mean, hopefully the things that we make seem so simple, it's because we figured it out. But some of them were like, you know, Peter's like, okay, they're all going to be under these blankets. I'm like, okay.
Okay.
And I leave a little bit cracked open so the light, no, they would never crack them open because smoke and fire would get in. I'm like, okay. So you're like, oh, trying to figure out, you know, how are we going to get this done?
Yeah, you want to keep it realistic because you'll
Exactly.
be called out if you don't, but you
Exactly.
also want to be able to do it the way it needs to be done.
Yeah, the little baked
Which,
potato scene.
Yeah, the
yeah,
baked potato
the baked
things, exactly.
potatoes.
Big potatoes.
Which
Which
how did
fat,
you how did you film those?
well, I mean, we built a platform, and we got you know, we stuck cameras somewhat inside, and I did what we did is we had the art department. So Sandy Getzler was the production designer, and those bags have like a silver laminate that's a heat resistance thing. We actually had them sand it down with sandpaper to make it thinner so that when I lit from the outside it could glow a little bit.
Mm,
Because when we first got them, like, nothing gets through those things. I
no,
mean, if you
yeah.
think about it, it's insane. They literally dig a hole and cover themselves up with a blanket, and it's like 1200 degrees outside. And I mean, they do often get injured, but not, you know, they don't die. And
Right.
the injuries, I won't say they're minor. I mean, you know, a burn injury is horrible, but um, you know, those little bags protect them. It's crazy. When I first heard about that, I was just like, no way. And we have Chief Brian was our fire, he's a retired fire chief, and he was our advisor, and he was like, no. And he showed us lots of documentation and lots of stuff of how this stuff works. And she's like, I can't imagine being like a new firefighter, like a young recruit, and they're like, just cover yourself with this little blanket. Like, hell no, I'm running like hell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see.
I've got one. How do you work with the special effects team to ensure that the visual effects blend seamlessly with the practical ones, especially in like we're talking about fire and explosion scenes?
Yeah, so the guys at Costa are pretty amazing, and so I know it sounds really silly, but we would have their representatives on set, and they would be like, "Okay, there'll be fire over here, and it's gonna be a big fire." Like it was like this really generic sort of descriptions. Um, but I often interacted with them. We had interactive lighting, so I would say like, "Well, if somebody's standing here and there's a fire there, there's gonna be a light coming in this direction." And so I would say, stuff like, is that enough? Oh no, we're going to make the fire much bigger. So we'd have to make the interactive lighting much bigger. That's also Roger Sasson, our gaffer. He would come up with things and say like, just crazy stuff where you're just like, look, they're standing by cars. That reflection would come off the glass. You're like, yeah, you're absolutely right. So I need a light from over here. So a lot of times, um, we sort of planned this stuff ahead of time in pre-production, but then we would augment it on the set once again, being reactive to what we saw. Um, but then those guys would just sort of fix it. Like those guys would augment stuff. They were able to the digital world is getting really crazy, and so they'd be able to even take some of our lighting and augment it to stuff that didn't exist. So if they made the fires bigger, they could make the interactive lighting on them feel bigger. But yeah, for the most part, like all the fire stuff was crazy. I mean, we never, well, I won't say never. When Darren in season 5, I'll say this, Darren didn't do it, but I like to joke because he directed it. Darren killed off Oak,
Yes.
and that was all real fire, which was a blast because we rarely get to do that for safety anymore. And so it was kind of fun to go back and do it the old-fashioned way. Um, but some of that fire was augmented by digital. And so, and it was seamless. It was like, I don't remember a fire being there. And they were like, no, there wasn't. Remember, we had whatever light was there. So they painted fire over our light.
Yep.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's
that
super
was
cool.
when we talked to Darren, that was one of the running jokes he said was if Darren's in charge, someone's dying.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. We killed off lots of people with Darren.
Yeah.
He's the Grim Reaper, apparently.
Yep. That's how he referred to it.
That's so sad because he's so nice.
Yes.
Be careful for the
Yeah.
quiet ones, I guess.
Another question was what did you ever have an unexpected technical issue that you had to solve during a shoot?
This wasn't a technical issue, but this was kind of scary. So, season 7, the very first episode with Tessa Blake, I show up to the location and we had already figured out an order in which we were going to shoot. And Tessa comes to me and says they had stolen the entire sound department trailer. They had a trailer with all their equipment in it. And I'm like, what do you
What?
mean? And she says, it's gone. And I'm like, how is that possible? Like we have security guards and she's like, it doesn't matter how it's possible. I'm just telling you, we have no sound. And 90% of our episodes are dialogue. So we had to figure out how to shoot stuff that we needed at least 3 or 4 hours for Juan Cisneros, he's our sound mixer, to basically call all over town and get equipment. And at the time, it was a very busy time, so it was hard. Juan has been doing this forever, so there's a lot of stuff that he had designed and made by companies to his own spec that you can't just buy off the shelf. And so that was a huge challenge. It was just like, oh my God, you realize there's only maybe 6 shots I can do that have no sound in them. And Tessa was like, right, so we got to figure this out. And so we ended up kind of changing the order and massaging things and doing whatever we could to finally get to a point where we're like exhausted everything we could have done. And it's like, we have nothing else to shoot today. And it's like, it's okay. Juan's got his stuff. And then we just finished the day. So it was, that was crazy. It was insane. Like it was a trailer that's like, let's just say, you know, I'm guessing an 8x20 trailer, you know, that you pull along a big truck
Right.
filled with sound equipment, and they had taken it. I guess somebody had somehow gotten past security and hooked it up to a truck and drove it away.
That's, that's insane.
Yeah, totally
It's
insane.
a big truck. It's not like one piece of equipment. Like, how do
No,
you miss a truck?
yeah, exactly.
Like
And
a
people are
giant
like,
trailer.
bye. Where's the sound department going? I mean, it was just, I mean, obviously they did it before we were there, you know, otherwise we would have known like, hey, wait, that shouldn't be going anywhere. But yeah, that was a huge challenge.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
That's one of those pivot moments. We get, okay, what do we do now?
Well, and that's just it. You know what? That's a great word. We use it all the time, and I didn't know if it's something that the fans are familiar with, but um, we pivot all the time, and that's part of the reactiveness. It's like, okay, this isn't working. Let's not dwell on the fact that it doesn't work or why it doesn't work or this sucks that it doesn't work. What are we doing now? That doesn't work. So what are we doing now? And the pivot, I think, is what we got really good at as a team. You know, and there were times where, you know, even if I couldn't figure out a pivot, there was somebody that was part of my team that would be like, why don't you just do this? And it's like, oh my God, that's brilliant. Hey, you guys, Roger just said that we could do this and this, you know, and everybody's like, okay, boom, all hands on deck, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's see. How do you manage color grading and lighting in a show that shifts between intense warmth of fire scenes to the cooler, quieter hospital and firehouse moments?
You know, we have sort of a playbook, so to speak, and there were certain specific things. So we have a DIT, a digital intermediate technician, Andy Lemon, and Andy kept a lot of those notes for me. And so, you know, we would go into certain areas and I would remember a lot of it, but I would always double check with them. So we should be at 4,300 degrees Kelvin or blah, blah, blah. Oh, no, no, no. That's right. We switched it this season. We're now doing it this way. And so we had a little playbook. And we try to maintain that. And then obviously I would do final color grade. Once the episode was edited, it wasn't always totally complete. Sometimes I'd get there and they didn't have some of the final special effects because they were working on them. But I would sit down with our colorist and we would you know, go through scene by scene and we would tweak little things here and there. And sometimes also just in terms of color, like let's just say each room has a different look to it, but then when you put them together, it gets kind of jarring to be jumping back and forth. So we would sort of smooth them out. Like if one scene was cool and the next one was warm, we would not make the cool one so cool and not make the warm one so warm so that the transition wasn't so abrupt. And then we would slide the scale, you know, in a scene when you first cut from a cool thing to a warm one, that might be a little bit cooler, but then as the scene progresses, you can bring back the warmth like it should be in a very subtle way, and nobody notices except us.
Yeah.
And now I told you guys, so now you're gonna be watching.
And now I
We're
and now
gonna
I
go
know, and I'm going
rewatch
for
it.
it.
And now you're watching for it. Oh, he did it right there.
Yeah.
We
It's so
are those
fascinating.
nerds.
Yeah. We love
And see, and so that's why we have to be on our toes all the time because somebody's gonna be on a screen on a keyboard. Click, 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 click. You did this. Oh,
Oh.
I never noticed.
Yeah, it's so
No.
fun to hear all the little behind the scenes things that go into just making it so beautiful. There's so many
Yeah.
little intricate things happening.
Right. When,
We
you know,
love
even my parents used to say stuff like, you know, why are there so many people? Why does it take so many people to make a movie? And I'm like, you know, you watch the credits and, well,
Yeah,
a lot of people don't watch the credits. Boo. You should watch the credits.
we do.
We do.
There's so
We
many
do,
people
and we know those names.
Yeah, there's so many people involved because it takes a lot of efforts on a lot of parts. You know, I was um we all respected each other. Like I always had our makeup department come into my room where I was watching stuff and I would ask them questions or I would say, look, I've done everything I could with lighting. Is there any way you can help me with, you know, XYZ? And we all tried to do our best. And I think that's what elevates the game. Is there's a certain point where, you know, the I guess the gestalt of it all is like the pieces add up to be more than what you know the final additiveness of all the pieces elevates that game to the next level that individually those pieces would never have done.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Here's a little off the wall question: is which cast member is most likely to crack everyone up between takes, and how does that affect the production flow?
Jay. Well, he cracks
You didn't
me
even
up.
have to think about it.
Think about it. But here's the thing. Jay cracks everything up, but then there were moments, like I'm a huge fan of his. There were moments, I always joke with him and I would say, I'm your number one fan. There were moments where Jay's character was, I want to say the comic relief often in very serious moments, but we had a few episodes where he was very serious and it was like, whoa, where did that come from? Because you kind of get used to him being the comic relief, and then he had like these really serious emotional scenes, and you're just like, oh my God, you're awesome. Like you were like I used to joke with him all the time, and I would say, I hope someday we do some crazy movie or something where you're like the bad guy, because I'd love to see you like you would like totally blow everybody away
Yeah,
because it's so unexpected from him that I think he would like totally pull it off.
Yeah.
I like that. That'd be fun to watch.
I would.
Yeah.
Let's see. Over the seasons, we've seen Maya and Andy grow significantly as characters. How do you visually reflect their personal journeys through your cinematography?
Well, there's those things are specific. I mean, those things are considered when we start, and that's something that I had discussions with Tessa and Stacy K. Black, who is also our executive producer director from the seasons prior. Like as they're developing, and Gray also changed quite a bit, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And like how do we represent that now? And so um Peter and Tessa were very technical. And so when I would throw out technical things, they were like, okay, I like that. Don't go too far with that or whatever. But a lot of times, other people would just be open to getting suggestions. And I would say stuff like, what if we shoot them more in close-ups, or what if we shot them more like this, on wide angle lenses or whatever. And depending on the specific story, we would, I might want to go to 10 and they would reel me back to 7. They wouldn't let me go too far because to a certain degree you have to maintain again the way that the seasons all flow together. But you do want an evolution because they are evolving. Everybody evolves, I'm not the same person I was 3 years ago. So it's how you see them. It's also what the perspective is, and that's in the writing. As the writing changes their characters, we always had writers on set, and we became friends with all of them. And so sometimes I would just ask, I would just say, you know uh, why are we doing this? Oh, well, you don't know, but in the next couple episodes she's going to have a mental breakdown and blah blah. Oh, so we should maybe not make this so cheery looking. Yeah, and then we would discuss it with the directors, and the directors would come on board, or the directors would say, "No, that's actually better. We'll make it super cheery so that there's a big like, wait, where did this come from?" So all those things were discussed in pre-production. And ultimately it's the showrunners, Krista, Vernoff at first, and then Peter. They would all, they would chime in with very specifics of how the characters should be. That was often in what they called the tone meeting, what the tone of the character and what the tone of the scene was, and how we should make that work within this 1 hour.
Um, let's see. When shooting under challenging conditions like low light, rain, or smoke, what gear adjustments or techniques do you find most effective?
We were lucky. We were shooting with Sony Venice's, and those cameras have a lot of leeway in terms of resolution and low light. Um, but ultimately, I know this sounds like a simplified thing, but it's just kind of a math game. And if sometimes my lenses weren't capable of doing the stuff we needed, we would augment with having more lighting. Or you know, the whole fire scenes and a lot of the last two episodes, we didn't have the ability to just have, I mean, we made a wish list of all the equipment that we needed to be in all those areas up in the woods. And it was like, you know, the producers came back and said, you guys realize that your lighting budget alone is 3 times the amount of our whole budget. Like, we can't do this. So how are we going to do this? So what I say, the math of it is you kind of rob Peter to pay Paul. If I can't do it with lighting, then I have to make sure, well, I'm going to get some specialty lenses that work under lower light conditions, or I'm going to do X, Y, Z. And, you know, the great part about it is our producers accommodated that. You know, there's a lot of shows that just say like, we can't do it. And they walk away from you and you're like, okay, so what am I supposed to do? Like, but they were really good. They were always pretty interactive. And, you know, even our producers would say, well, it seems like day 5 is a light day. If we could get away with not using a crane and a this and a that on that day, I could use that money to put towards this. So they were very helpful that way. And we just ended up being teammates, you know. We would bargain and trade and, you know, say like, and there were times where I would go to the producers and say, you know, as much as I'd like to, I really don't need XYZ. I think it would make it a faster thing and that should save you money, right? And they'd be like, oh, thank God, that'll be great because we need it for this. So you just become teammates, you know, you just try to, I try to understand what other people's needs are and not just my own, and be able to know what I can get away with not having to use so that when we really need it. And I think that was also a strength that I had, is that if I ever did go to the producers and say, I really need it, they knew I wasn't messing around. They knew that like, okay, Brian really thought about this and there's no other way. Let's see what we can do to give them this equipment that we need.
Oh,
Yeah.
think. Is
You
there
know,
any specific?
at the end of the day, it all has to come in a certain budget.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's always budget at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, we could dream up a million solutions to things, but in reality, if you don't have the money to pay for that stuff, it means nothing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Is there a specific cast member whose performance has inspired you to push your creative boundaries in your cinematography?
I mean, not as a cast member, but I'll go back to the Stefania thing. When she was directing, she really pushed. She's like, I would really like to do that. And I'm like, we can't do that. Like, they're never going to go for that. And she's like, you just let me talk to them about it. And then Peter would come in and be like, so I heard you're going to do blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, we're going to do that. You know, so she had convinced the powers that be that it was, you know, very important. So it was cool. Very cool.
Oh.
We did some of them, like I shot with anamorphic lenses on one of the episodes with Jay when he was running for mayor. We tried to sprinkle in little bits of stuff. And obviously that was like, I was a new kid on the block, so I also ran a lot of that stuff by Darren because, you know, he had spent so many years in developing a sort of visual style and language that I wasn't just going to come in there and like stomp my feet and change everything. Like, I would come to Darren, and that's why I said earlier on that he was very supportive. Like, you know, there were a lot of times where he would just be like, I was expecting him to be like, I don't think we should do that. And he'd be like, that sounds like a good idea. You think he can pull it off? And then I'd be like, I'm pretty sure. And he'd be like, well, then you should do it. And I'm like, really? Okay, great. So, there came a point where we were all trying to maintain sort of the consistency of the show, but we knew that, you know, people want evolution, people want better stuff. People, especially fans that have been watching for all those years, they're going to be tired of the same old thing. It's the same with the storylines. They just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Like season 6, episode 1, we had a tornado.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then season 7, there's a fire
There's a fire
tornado.
tornado.
Yeah, there's a fire tornado. Like, it just kept, like, the ante just kept getting pushed,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, you're upping it more.
Yeah, and it was fun because it was like, wait, what? We're gonna do what? And that was the challenge. You know, like, okay, well, it makes sense to do this, this, and this, you know. We also helped each other. So like the tornado episode, the Fire NATO episode 9 and 10 of season 7. Darren had done episode 9 with Tessa Blake, and I did episode 10 with Peter Page. But um, I had gone to shoot some stuff for Darren on his episode, and then Darren came and shot some stunts for me because it was such a big episode that we just couldn't get it done in the amount of time. And the only solution was like, we need to have two separate crews. Like Darren needs to shoot the whole Fire NATO thing and the stunt of wow, can't remember her name.
Yes,
Kate.
Kate.
Chaos
Yeah.
Kate.
Say,
Yeah, it's Kate getting slammed up against the wall. Like that was a big thing because of safety and because of all that stuff. You can't just like, oh, don't worry about it. Like it had to be very precisely planned. And it was a point where we're like, we have way too much stuff to do. And well, Darren is basically done with his episode. They're doing some post stuff. Hey, Darren, could you come and do this? And he's like, yeah, I'd love to do a stunt, you know? So, and we all just sort of work so well together that it like literally when I hope I provided this for Darren, but I knew that when Darren came to do the stunt, like it just vanished off my plate of worries. Like I didn't have to think about it. I'm just like, okay, good. He's got that. I can worry about this other stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing. That you guys work so well together.
Yeah, I'm hoping that we do something else.
Yeah.
Season 8, we're still fighting for it. We're not gonna give up on it. We're like relentless fans. We're like, it's premature. Like, we'll give you some time to think about it, but let's bring back the show. Come on now.
Well, I'm under the impression that I still think we have a lot of sets standing somewhere. They're not built, they took them down, but they're organized and I think
safe.
they're in good shape to go back to.
David wants to do a movie. He's like, let's do just like a movie, and, to encompass like the ending of Station. And I'm like, I'm fine with anything at this point. I think you guys would probably be the same. Like, whatever you guys want to do, we're here.
I mean, at the end of the day, the way the last episode was written, where we jump forward in time to a lot of the things, right? It gives you at least a 20-year span, 15 to 20-year span of stuff that we don't know what happened. So it could continue.
Yeah. Fill in those gaps.
Yeah, fill in those gaps. That was actually neat too, now that I think about it. It's a lot of stuff blends together, but now that I think about it while I'm talking to you, is just when Oak came back during Vic's speech. Super cool.
Yeah.
Not super crazy effects driven, like, normal stuff that we could do, but at the end of the day, when it all worked, you're just like, wow.
Yeah.
yeah.
Be cool. That was a fun surprise.
And it was nice. We hadn't seen him for a couple of years, so
yeah.
Cool having, people say this all the time. It's like this, sort of go-to phrase, but you become a family. You really do. You spend all this time together, and it's kind of like, when Oak left the show, you want for people to pursue things that they're going to be happy about, and you wish them all the best of luck, but your buddy kind of left. And so it's neat to see when they come back,
Yeah. I bet.
A reunion of sorts.
Yeah, exactly.
As you know, maybe a lot of the fans love the BTS over the years. And we have one question that was wondering if you had any stories behind the scenes about the cast that made a specific scene particularly challenging or rewarding to film.
God, that's a tough one. So rewarding. I don't think anything was particularly tough. Well, I mean, maybe you could say tough. Like, I think that the sort of the closing moments of 7, like when you see Theo come back in and he's like older, or you see Stefania older, like you see those moments, they're kind of tough to watch because we knew that was the last time we were going to see him. You know what I mean? So
Mm.
that was tough.
Yeah.
But it was rewarding because it was like this cool sort of wrap up where everybody, all the different characters are getting this closure of what was going on, and in kind of maybe a hopeful way. Boris got married, and Vic's in the airport and she's surprised by Jay. Like all these little moments, like, even at the station when Danielle's talking to the new recruits and then, Jaina comes back. Like there were these neat little moments that kind of closed the story off enough to where you didn't feel bad, but you also felt sort of sad, like you're not going to see him anymore. You're
Right.
gonna have that anymore. Oh, you know what? Time out. I do want to do a callback to, there was a scene that we shot with Danielle and Gray in the turnout room where Gray says, you were always the one. And we had combined footage that was shot on the very first episode on the pilot. And actually David edited that. So I called him up. And I'm like, hey man, Peter and I are shooting this thing, and I got the footage from the pilot, and I think this and this and this. I want to make sure that it cuts well together. I think we need a shot here. And Peter was like, "Oh, I don't think we'll need that or whatever." And then so David lives near the studios near Disney, and so he came down and he's like, and he was going over the footage with Peter, and we were all sitting there, and that was super fun and super challenging because it was stuff that had been shot 7 or 8 years ago, and all we had it on a laptop, and we were trying to like match the angles and like, okay, well, that camera should have been here, and but if I do that, I can't do this. So what if we did this? Let's do a cutaway to the ring hand and blah blah blah. Anyway, I'm very proud of that because as simple as it sounds, it wasn't simple, and it was flawless to where we saw old Jaina and old Gray making out, and when we saw modern day Jaina and modern day Gray watching, like all that
Yeah.
worked. It worked really good,
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's super cool.
Yeah, super, right? It was like, yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Okay, let's
Continue.
see. So we normally like to do a few really fun questions. Um, so first question is, if you could have any superpower, what would it be and why?
Me personally,
Yeah.
Yes.
I like to fly because I've been a Superman fan all my life.
Yes.
I don't know, like it has nothing to do with work, but
No, no.
Just
I'd love to
These are
fly.
just fun questions to get to know you
Yeah,
better.
I want to fly. Oh my
okay.
God, that'd be amazing.
We're like,
And
oh,
I'd fly with
there
a
goes
camera in
Brian.
my hand. I'd be my own.
yes.
One of the questions we like to ask everybody also is, do you collect anything? Like, are you a collector of a certain thing or like, comic books, action figures?
Oh, no, not really. I mean, I have some sentimental things. I should have brought it out. I know where it is. I could go get it. But I have a beautiful, so I think it was season 5 for Christmas. I got a slate with all the actors' signatures on it,
Oh,
and um, saying Merry Christmas and congratulations and blah blah blah. And that's something I have. There's certain things, I mean, not necessarily from the show. I'm not really a collector, but there's certain things that are important to me. Like I have that in my home office and it's really
Yeah.
cool. I also have I had a really lovely relationship with Stacey K. Black. She was really good to me, and I really enjoy her as a person. And so I have one of the first episodes I shot with her. I have the slate from that episode. Um, I just have just some things that I like to look over at and go like, oh, I remember that. Here, I'll show you something that the crew got me. My very own
Nice.
fire axe.
Your own
That's
axe.
No
awesome.
way. I love that.
That's
Oh, does
awesome.
it have your name on it?
Yeah, I don't know. Let's see.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so
Garbellini.
Oh,
cool.
that's so cool.
19 season 6. Oh, so awesome.
Yeah, so there's definitely some things that I keep. My wife's scared of that thing though. She's, what are you doing?
But it's
Ah,
practical. Like if you ever
Like,
needed it.
you better behave.
You just never know when you might want to tear a wall down. It's fine.
I know, you never know. What if we have to get out of here in a hurry? I got my
Right. It might be a fire.
Oh,
You got
let's
all the
not-
tools now.
Yeah, so there's little things that I like to, keep. I probably will never get rid of. I always think about like where I actually plan like where can I keep these things? If I like, as a matter of fact, we're gonna repaint my office soon and stuff, and it's not a situation where like, oh, I should just put these things away. I'm like, no, I'm gonna put them back up. Like these are
Yeah.
things that I like to look at every now and then.
Mhm. Yeah. Do you collect camera lenses? Like, do you like to collect all the things?
No, here's the thing is I guess I'm a little pragmatic in that when I'm using tools, I fall in love with them because I like certain things, but they're tools to me. They come and go,
Mhm.
and there are periods in my life where I was using certain things a lot, and then sometimes I look at it now and I've evolved from that, so I just think like, oh yeah, that was cool, but it's nothing that I have to have per
Mhm.
se. Um, I don't know. Yeah, that's not me. Not really.
Yeah.
Very cool.
One of the questions that we always ask also is obviously it's too late to do anything about it now, but like, would you have wanted to take anything from the set?
Oh, um, no, I mean I got enough cool stuff. I don't know. I'm an experiential person. Like I
Yeah.
I take things and I have them here and photos and that. I do wish you guys mentioned about photographs. The one thing that I do wish was that, and I know that in this day and age, marketing and everything like that, they're very um tight with photographs, but I wish we could have been given the opportunity to take more photos on the set. Just things with the crew and whatever. But the problem is like you take a picture with the crew in front of a truck or something, and then all of a sudden a fan will be like, wait, that's not the right truck, and blah blah blah. And it creates this whole big thing, and then they get mad at you for like taking a picture. And it's like all I wanted was a memory of me and my camera crew at
Right.
this tough location, and it was fun. So I wish somehow, and that won't change. I mean, I think that's only going to get worse. But that would be the only thing that I would have liked to have had more of.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really cool. All the memories are
To keep
good.
the memories. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and sometimes I get it. It's you don't want to spoil things, but sometimes I just think that it's so strict. Like,
Yeah,
that's tough.
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Well, we know that you have a very important birthday to go celebrate, so we don't want to keep you too long, but we have
Yes.
immensely enjoyed the time that we've had with you and learned so much. Like, really, the nerds in us are just so excited. I'm like, just hearing all about how you do your thing and the skills that you have and the expertise were just
Well, you
wonderful.
guys have my number and email, so if something comes up, even if you just want to nerd out about something, just send me an email. I love doing that stuff too. I told you to remind me to say one thing. I want to say one thing. I
Yeah.
want to say a specific message to Shonda Rhimes. She has to get another show for us because we killed this one. She has to get this group back together again, and it could be whatever. It could be new if they don't want to redo the fire thing.
Oh,
I mean, I just think that it'd be a missed opportunity to not have this group continue to solve the challenges and move forward and tell the stories and do all that stuff. So,
yes.
come on, Shonda, let's go.
Amen to
We
that.
need our
And I
family
said
back
amen.
together.
We can go to another universe. It's fine.
Yes. Here. We are fine, but yeah, we'll be there supporting you personally and
Maybe it's a police show. I don't know. Maybe it's who knows.
whatever you want to do. We will be
Show
there.
on
We'll support
Mars.
it.
We don't care.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, please know that we admire you, Brian, and your work, and we will be fans of your work and supporters here cheering you along. And we're just so grateful for your time. So thank you for
Well,
hanging
thank
out
you
with
so
me.
much. I'm lucky to be in a position where I get to have fun at work. Like I said, I get to go to work and not have to go to work.